time ago I was lost and astray. I found a place far, far away where I can play each and every day.
When are you expecting Mike Ward?
Oh, he'll come running around the corner any minute. He left about, it usually takes him about 25, 30 minutes, depends. He ran that way today.
Myself and I till I die. Nobody around to make me cry.
How was your run this morning, Mike?
Not bad at all, actually. The last bit of it, particularly downhill, suits me well. Gravity works better for me downhill, I find.
Have you earned a coffee this morning?
I have. Mind you, you don't really have to earn coffee, you know. It's just one of those things you should treat yourself to. Sit around and enjoy it. Morning, Grace.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Leaping out of the skin.
Leaping out of your
I
skin.
thought you said it wasn't going to rain.
It's not raining, is it?
A couple was.
Oh, damn. Got a few more signatures on there this morning. You might need to change the page, please, sir.
Well, I could do. I don't mind doing that, you know.
You don't mind doing that?
No.
Get it ready for the next lot.
I think some of my friends are, they've signed as well.
Your friends have?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Well, I can understand the ones who look after the mic. I think that's admirable. But really, I think how we do it is not whether you have houses, but how you build the house. The conversation we should be having is about the kind of development. Because right now they could build some lifestyle, homes up there, which would certainly not be affordable.
I think the houses should be made to look like the environment that they're built in.
Good point.
So nice raw timber and...
So you could write those into the conditions, the kind of things you want to see happen, and then have the conversation with the developer, because no developer wants to be known as the guy who spoiled the Mai.
I'll describe what I think of Mike Ward. Mike Ward, first off, artist. Yes, he's a politician and he's been a politician, but I'm not a political person, so I haven't really followed him in that area. Mike Ward, runner. How many coast to coast has he done? About 30. So much so that I think Spates made him his own can of beer with a picture of him on it, with his name on it. So, and I just find him a really interesting person. He's very knowledgeable. He's very into saving the planet and everything. A lot of things that I agree with.
In my fantasy, I lost all my friends in 1 week, and they all think I'm a prick. This happened way too quick. Feeling quite sick. I got nothing to fear, no clothes to wear, just a hair on my head and a messy beard.
I don't think I ever aspired in the early days to be a politician, but John Grant was one of my colleagues, was a science teacher at Tokoroa High School, and he was the Taupo candidate for the Values Party, and Reg Clough was the then leader of the Values Party, and he came and talked to the staff, at least those of us who were interested, and he spoke about the absurdities of life. We've got more machines for doing our work for us than we've ever had, and we spend more time working. We have more cars and wider roads, and it's easier to get places than it's ever been, and we spend more time getting places. And the only thing that's changed in the interim was the numbers of cars have got greater, and they've got faster, and the roads have got more numerous, and we spend even more time getting places than ever before. We spend more time shopping for stuff than we ever did, and we've already got everything, and the stuff is cheaper than it's ever been, and we're working more hours to pay for the stuff, even though it's cheaper than it's ever been, and we've already got everything. It's the absurdities of life that resonated then. If we talk about the environment, I don't remember. It's the very same things that make our lives absurd that undermine the capacity of the planet to sustain life. So it is wardrobes full of clothes we never wear. It's the 2 cars in the garage. It's the house that's much bigger than we can afford and miles from all the places we need to be. It's the holidays on the other side of the planet. The food from the other side of the planet. In a food-producing nation, you know, most of the food on our supermarket shelves was imported. What's that about? So it's the absurdities of life that got me interested. It'll be something around what kind of village might it take to raise not just a child, but what sort of child? What sort of children would you like the world to be full of? The curious child, the loving child, the kind child. We talk about houses and we talk about affordable housing, but housing isn't just an affordability issue. It's a lifestyle issue, it's an energy issue, it's a community building issue, it's a health issue. We're building not just houses, but villages. What sort of lives would people live in a place like this? So you walk out of these doors and you're in a space that's shared by your neighbours, and chances are one of these buildings is a cafe, and maybe there's elder care and child care and somebody to fix the plumbing.
Well, I try to start again. But
It's quite therapeutic in a way, isn't it? You know, you sit here thinking, you know, we're stuff rich and time poor, and time is the stuff of contemplating what else and why not. If you could have it as good as you would like, what would that look like? Most of us are just too busy. The lovely thing about doing something like this is I have to engage from time to time and think consciously about what I'm doing, but much of it is just sort of me doodling away and thinking.
still just the same.
I was talked into leaving school by my art teacher before I had UE, so I couldn't go to art school. I only had to have school certificate to go to teachers' college, so I went to teachers' college. I was doing my probationary year at Camden Street up the road. A bunch of delightful 6 and 7 year olds. And after school one Friday, I was down at the pub, the Rising Sun, with other members of staff, and I mentioned that I'd rather like to have gone to art school, but I never matriculated. And one of the staff said to me, well, you're over 21, you could go to university special admission. He told me about the university calendar, which gave instructions as to what to do to go to get special, find out what you had to do to get special admission. I went down to the library that night and I got a copy of the university calendar and discovered that all I had to do was send them £5 and write them a letter and they would consider my application. So the next year, and it was £5 was about half a week's wages as a beginning school teacher. So next year I wound up at Canterbury University doing fine arts. Because as a special admission student, there are no fees or allowances, so I had to find those and I was totally broke. I had no materials. I wound up taking a job in a factory making Atlas ranges of the Scott Brothers. So I'd finish art school at 4 o'clock or 4:30 and then head off to the factory. I pressed out oven doors and drilled holes in hinges, and in my whole time there, I don't think I ever saw an Atlas range, not a whole Atlas range, unless it was in a shop window. So I didn't actually see what I was making, and I guess that's That's true of most of the things we buy. Nobody knows the whole story, whereas I wound up making jewellery at art school because I was sacked from the cleaning job that was paying my way through art school in my second year there. And on the day I was sacked from my cleaning job, I was walking home through the campus and they were putting a copper roof on one of the engineering school buildings, a mushroom-shaped building at the front of the engineering school on Creek Road or Clyde Road. And there were scraps of copper lying around the building site. And I picked up some of those scraps of copper and I took them home to my flat. And that night I made my very first jewellery and I sold it to the students the next day in the cafe. And I paid my way through art school making jewellery.
The same.
So I went to art school thinking I was going to be a painter. But when you go to art school, you get everything in the first year. And I became a sculptor. I discovered the third dimension. And so I had a little gas torch and I had a few tools. So that meant I could make some, I had the wherewithal to make jewellery once I picked up the scraps of copper. So no, I had no intention of being a jeweller. As I was going to and from art school, I'd keep an eye open for the guys working on the telegraph poles and the electricity guys, and they'd leave scraps of copper wire lying around the bottom of the lamppost, and I'd go back after they'd finished work and after I'd finished work and pick up the scraps of copper. This is going to be one quite cool aerial gymnast. And unlike the Atlas Rangers, which were all the same, my little aerial gymnast, and I've made lots that won't be like any other aerial gymnast. It has beautiful breasts and a belly to die for. It's quite fun doing something like this because while you're doing it, it's going down a track and all of a sudden something will pop into your head and you'll think, oh, I could do that, I can have a row of houses all starting at the same level. I have some in the background and they all got finials on, which scares. So when I retired from the classroom, it was to be an artist. I had 9 years teaching secondary, 8 delightful years at Tokoro High School, 1 part-time year with 1 Ian Hudson at Christchurch Boys High. I came back to Nelson. We bought the house. We'd been down here for 7 days in the May school holidays. After I decided I wasn't going to be a teacher anymore. I wanted to spend time with my wee girls and I wanted to create. We came down here for 7 days and we bought a house. And on the 1st of January 1978, we moved in. I went out to the coal shed that was sort of at my back door and I cut a hole in the front wall, went down to a second-hand shop and bought a sash window and popped it in. And that was my workshop. I started making jewellery. And I went around the local craft shops and said, would they be interested in looking at my wares? And they said no. The conversation wasn't going to go very far. So I sent parcels of stuff around the country. And when I was at art school, I had found stores to sell on, but nobody was interested in selling my jewellery. So Joe went down to the city council and got a hawker's license for me so I could sell on the street. So for the next 25 years almost, quite a few years, I had a street stall. This is my pointy thing. For years I drew umbrellas with pointy bits on. One Friday afternoon I decided that I could make a pointy bit. So I did some drawings, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon I went down and bought some fabric. And by 9 o'clock that night I'd made the pointy bit. This is the second one. And again, every umbrella should have a pointy bit on it. Most beautiful umbrella on the market. So Saturdays and Fridays, well, Fridays initially, because there was no Saturday shopping back in those days, we were much more enlightened. Friday afternoons, Friday evenings, I would sell jewellery, only on Fridays and Saturdays. My license said that I could stand still for as long as requested to do so by a customer. In the beginning I felt very vulnerable, and I wore my jewellery on a tray around my neck for the first few Friday nights. And that felt a tad vulnerable, you know, people don't actually like getting that close to you. And I felt sort of rather exposed, so I made a very big hat to wear, to sort of hide under, and it was like a mask. And then I put wheels on my tray, and I wheeled it round, and I'd run up to town, sort of a time trial every time to run my cart to town. It was rather nice though, because you get the interaction with your customers. It's not like selling to a store. I've sold to stores. It's just a saleable commodity, and you're the person who produces it. But the relationship wasn't that brilliant most of the time. Well, it was when you're selling it to the person who's going to wear it, you see the delight. You know, you see the pleasure. You experience something extra. So selling my own wares has always been fun. So there was this one here, where I cut the hearts out of the bronze, you see, did my overlapping joins, because you're going to see my joins anyway, so rather than try to hide them, you make a feature of them. And then I've taken the little hearts that I've cut out of here, and I put them on here, and some little silver blobs on top, and I've enamelled the hearts, you see. And then I went to Parliament, and I let somebody else sell on my street stall site for the next 3 years, and kept paying the rent. And I gave him my jewellery cart. And then I came out of Parliament and decided, well, I don't really want to sell on the street anymore. I've done that. So I went down and saw Nita at the market and said, Nita, can I have a street store? Can I have a market site? And she said, oh, you know, I've got lots of jewellers down here already, so don't worry about it. But she felt bad about it for the rest of the week and tried to find me and tell me I was forgiven. Yes, I could have a site at the market. So I've been down there now selling since 2006. Well, people give me their coin collections. It's amazing, you know, people say, oh, you use coins. I've got coins. Well, my mother had a collection of coins, and some will give them to me and some will sell them to me. So this is a coin of the realm no longer. So I've added a moon to this one and a brass frame. I may not be a great artist, but I'm okay, and I make lovely things, and you know, that's enough. Perhaps, you know, we need to rethink what it is to be successful. It's almost sculptural. The jewellery is quite two-dimensional often. This is annealing metal. It's a bit of hard brass, and I want to cut it out. I want to saw it out, and it'll be much softer. sore if I heat it. And I need to let it cool because it's an alloy. It tends to, I discovered this by, just over time. If I quench this, it'll go hard again. It tempers. Whereas if I can cool it down a bit first, before I quench it, it won't go hard again. So I'm just going to pop it on there and stick a bit of railway iron on top of it, and the iron will soak the heat out of the brass, and then I'll just pop it into the water to cool it the rest of the way. But by doing it this way, I can cut it again fairly quickly, otherwise it'll just go hard again. The plain thing is about discovering what works, and I guess had I been trained as a maker of jewellery, there's things I could do that I'd be able to do that I can't do. Never learned how to do. So I'm never going to be a jeweller. I'm never going to call myself a jeweller. I make festoonery, I make bling, I make lovely stuff. But and it's jewellery. But I'm not a jeweller. But I do know what metal does. And it's always a delight to see it happen. You're not trying to force it to do anything it doesn't want to do. I'd entered my first entry in WOW in 2001. 2001 was a brilliant year. Just everything happened in 2001. I decided I was going to go to Parliament the next year. I got over not being elected the previous election. I produced my first Lush Green Gospel, which is the predecessor to that, a tiny document. This was the first WOW entry though, and I'd won the Man Unleashed section. And they sent me a letter in 2001 telling me I was a finalist and what to do at the end of the show. A week after I lost my seat in Parliament, I took Nicola, my eldest daughter, to the awards show of the Wearable Arts. It was the very first time in Wellington, and I had been quite outspokenly critical when it went to Wellington, more critical than I normally am. So the next year, in 2005, a week after I lost my seat in Parliament, I took Nicola to the awards show, and I had an entry in it, and I knew that I wasn't winning anything, but I hadn't had a finalist letter. But when my piece came on stage, it looked lovely, and it was it had to be quick because I was in Parliament. You just don't have time, and I had to rush home and rush up to my attic and do some painting. So it was two unhemmed canvases. The front one showed 3 fashionably dressed young people, all just painted on. A man in the middle, woman either side, and I cut the face away from the guy in the canvas. They were life size. And I'd attached the brim of the hat to the canvas as well, and I'd attached one sleeve. So the model was the man in the middle. And you could see his face, and his arm came through the sleeve, and he could move his arm around. The other arm was holding the canvas. The canvas was on a pole underneath the canvas, you see. And then you could see his feet sticking out the bottom. And when they turned it and walked away, there were 3 plump, naked, middle-aged backsides walking away from you. When it came on stage, and I said to Nicola, "Oh, that's cool. You don't know this. You make pieces and you hope it's going to look good on stage." And I just finished it and rushed off to Parliament. It was Tuesday, Monday night. I was working right through the night. Tuesday morning, I had to get off to Parliament, and I'd left it sitting in my lounge, and I'd phoned up my previous campaign manager and said, "Look, could you go and pick it up and take it out to WOW for me?" So I had no idea even what it looked like. I'd finished it and left it. At the end of the show, they announced that I'm a finalist in the open section. I thought, that's cool. And I won the Man Unleashed section. There was a cheque for $4,000 and a bunch of flowers and a certificate. And I think Helen Clark presented me with that prize. Because, it's a pretty prestigious show, the awards night. All the diplomatic corps are there, and the mayors are there, and there's lots of members of Parliament, and the Prime Minister was there. And then you go out the back and you wait till the end of the show for all the final awards. And the very last award, of course, is the Supreme Award. And I'm sitting here thinking, now that would make a really good story. You've just lost your seat in Parliament. It's a week after election, no, 6 days after election day. And your career as an artist needs a bit of a kickstart.
The winner of the 2005 Montana Supreme WOW Award is The Emperor's Entourage by Mike Ward Nelson.
I couldn't remember much about it, but people have come in since and told me they were at the show. And they said the applause was pretty considerable. I don't remember any of that, but I suppose some would know that I just lost my seat in Parliament. I wasn't just a wildly famous member of Parliament, but there would be a lot of Nelson people there, and they stopped feeling sorry for me because I lost my seat in Parliament, and they felt glad for me that I'd won WOW. And of course, from then on, I was referred to as a Nelson athlete, politician, and artist. And I don't think they'd ever put artist in there before. That's the one thing that had been consistent in my life. Well, I've probably always been an adventurer.
Here.
I retired from the classroom to be an artist and came back here to Nelson 42 and a half years ago. So to be, my youngest hadn't been born, my then youngest was 5, she's now a grandmother, so a long time ago, so I've been here for a while.
Well, I think I came, it must be about 20 years ago when I first came to Nelson
It's still a very beautiful wee city, isn't it?
I love it. It's been lots of memories.
I'm going to beat out a lily because lilies are fun. One of my great disappointments is that I only had one daughter with me. I'm not sure what that was about. I was rich enough as a member of Parliament to buy tickets for everybody. But there was only Nicola and me there. But normally I take Nicola and Jonty and Rebecca and sometimes a friend or two as well. And or grandchildren. And we go to the show. We go to the awards night. It's pretty spectacular. I mean, this is one of those lovely stories, isn't it? I don't think Dame Susie, she wasn't Dame Susie then, but Susie had any idea that it would get to be as big as it was. She had this quirky idea. It's the best sort of project, isn't it? Was she being wildly ambitious? No, I don't think so. I think she just wanted to do something really neat. She got more ambitious as time has gone on, obviously. But it's such a brilliant show. Better than when it was in Nelson? Well, I don't think so, but then I live in Nelson. It was more intimate in Nelson because you got closer to the action. It was in the Trafalgar Centre. And there were things that happened because it came out of this very small provincial community. It was quite remarkable. You expect Wellington, they can produce Lord of the Rings and King Kong and all sorts of extravaganzas and big cities to do it. But Nelson, Susie engaged with the local community, got locals to model. I remember the brilliant belly dancers one year, plump, good bellies, you know. These were local women on stage. What you get now, of course, is you get, performers, national performers. You get the New Zealand Ballet Company on stage. They can do things in Wellington they clearly couldn't do here. But a brilliant show. One of my customers bought these stones in Indonesia apparently, and brought them to me and said, would I turn them into brooches? One for herself, one for a sister. And these are very heavy, and I sort of woke up, I suggested things there and then, but then, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff, and I thought, it's another excuse for a village because there's this sort of landscape in behind here. So I road tested both of these. They need a reasonably bulky lapel to go onto, but it's a pretty solid pin. The warm one. Sort of a statement really, aren't they? Just the claws were fun too. It's quite fun doing this stuff and then watching it happen and then thinking, oh, it works or it doesn't work. In the case, practical terms, they are pretty weighty. So putting them on a silk blouse wouldn't work. Put on a reasonably solid jacket, a bit of tweed or something like that would work pretty well. Can't possibly charge you what they took to the time that went into them. So we have to figure out a price for them that you can afford. Look, I can't say I've ever enjoyed being a politician. But that's not to say there aren't great bits to it. There are fun and interesting bits to it, and the world changes as a consequence of what you do. And I can look around my city and see things that I've been part of and say, that's very cool. I can see the trees in Trafalgar Street, and I can see the furniture and the paving, and I can see the roof on the swimming pool and the heating there, and I can see Saxon's Field, and I can see all sorts of brilliant stuff that's happening. The cycleways around and the cycleways through the city. I was there when we put our first cycle strategy together, and I can say these are good things. So great stuff happens, and even though it's pretty glacial, the world is an infinitely better place because I was there, but I contributed to it. And so the world is an infinitely better place because of the actions of our politicians. If you're gay or black or a woman or disabled, have a different worldview, then the world is a kinder, more generous place almost all over the world. Not all equally all over the world, but wherever you are, there will be people who aspire to the same things that we aspire to, perhaps not with the same success, but given time, we have a history of getting better. Yeah, and that requires political action. Don't expect to get leadership very often from our political leaders. That comes from community, but eventually the politician will pick up on the highest aspirations, at least the higher aspirations, and enshrine that in legislation. I remember my friend Sean saying, we normalise the things we focus on. So if you focus on the problems, they sort of become the things that we're trying to eradicate become, so you're just trying to get over the line. You're trying to stop bad things from happening, yes, but in a strange sort of way, if you say, everybody's driving drunk, we shouldn't drive drunk. Well, you tell me everybody's driving drunk. Well, it can't be that, it becomes the norm almost. And that was a message for a long time with drunk driving. And so it didn't make a lot of difference. Now the message tends to be, so you're keeping your mate safe. That's smart. So we focus on what we want to happen rather than what we don't want to happen. Most of the politicians, overwhelmingly, it doesn't matter what their parties are, what their politics are, have been reasonable human beings, and I've known an awful lot of politicians. I can't say I've met any that were evil, bad, nasty. It's okay, I've known a wee bit of nastiness from time to time, but that's not common. 3 years of very hard work. I had a sense of privilege. I was aware of how fortunate I was. If I wanted to do something, in a way I was my own boss. I had these portfolios which I had to measure up to and to speak on behalf of, so I was the spokesperson for old people, for sports and leisure, for the arts, for small business, for tourism, for waste. I picked up waste by accident, and that was the one that the current waste legislation I prepared while I was in Parliament, that was a highlight, going around all the waste initiatives. It wasn't one that I would choose because really it's a bit of a negative one, isn't it? It's hard to be positive about waste. Between us, we put together a piece of legislation, and it is the current law. That was pretty cool. And I can understand, you know, if you built another suburbia in the Maitai, I'd say that would be a tragedy. Building another suburbia anywhere is a tragedy. But actually building a village is drop-dead gorgeous. It leaves most of the hillside covered in, you know, in forest would be just, you know, a splendid scheme. And I don't think any property developer would want to have a name for spoiling the Maitai. Having that conversation, how might you do it well? And being part of the conversation rather than, and I learned this in my first term on council, you know, you oppose things, you just aren't part of the conversation, you just go on opposing and nobody's interested. You know, it polarizes and antagonizes, we go into our silos, and the end result is mediocrity probably. I quote him in the very first paragraph in the book, I think, he said, "There's nothing we choose to do or not to do that is not a moral choice. In other words, everything we do has the capacity to harm or to hurt. Every purchase we make, every time we open our mouth." Then he said, "There may come a time when we can go about our lives without worrying about the harm we do to others. But this is not that time." And that idea of, you know, thinking, I live in a village and every choice I make has capacity to make my village a better village or a less better village. I've never been disappointed making jewellery. I've never been disappointed sculpting and painting and making stuff until I won WOW. And then I knew a different sort of success. So I'm still delighted, you know, making my little pot-bellied aerial gymnasts with delightful boobs. And they never disappoint. But when I go to the WOW show now, I'd like to win. And when I don't, there's a measure of disappointment. I'm delighted if my pieces look good, and that's great, but I still want to win. And most of the things I do, I don't have that sense. I'm not disappointed. I was disappointed when I didn't get elected to Parliament in '99. That was a big disappointment. For other reasons, I wanted to do things. I really wanted to do things there. That's why I wanted to be a member of Parliament, and I wasn't. And others were. But I'm never disappointed running races because I'm not a great athlete. Every coast to coast, I line up on the beach at Kamara in the morning, and for 16 years it was one day, and at the end of the day I was a sumner, high as a kite, feeling this extraordinary sense of contentment, finishing late as and never. I only got onto the place getters podium in the very last race. So there was never any sense of disappointment. So let's say we need to rethink what success is. Perhaps success is that sense of feeling good about what you do, not what other people think about what you do. The winning is the bit that can take the edge off it. Aspiring to be better than anybody else isn't a great aspiration. Aspiring to be as good as you can be, and measuring that by whether it's fun to do it, whether the things you do delight you. I was at the very first market in Miller's Acre, or another car park, 1980, 40 years ago. But I've been back here since I came out of Parliament, so what, 2005, 15 years. I sell a fair bit, here. More than that, it's, I can say it's a shape of community. You look around, it's just a bit quiet still. You can hear people talking to one another. And you see the same people come down at the same time, they go to the same places and sit with the same people every Saturday morning, and they'll go and shop at the same places and have the same conversation. But it's pretty cool.
And my customers will be the same customers. Well, I get new ones. We get plenty of repeats that come back every time they're in town. They'll come to see me, and I'll tell them every time they've already got enough, and they'll still buy more. They're very kind to me anyway. I'm rather fond of them. I am heading for coffee. Tracy, my dear.
Mike, my darling,
Could I have a coffee?
how are you today? Have you been for a run, Mike?
I have.
You alright? You haven't pulled anything?
You got my wheat cup?
Yes, I have got your wee cup here. The special little cup.
Have you seen the spoon?
Are you wanting to show them my special Joker spoon that Mike Ward made me? It's quite a privilege to get for a barista to get a Mike Ward spoon. And this was actually my grandmother's, and he shortened it a little bit and put a wee Joker on the end. Isn't that lovely? That better not be in my face right now.
Just a hair on my head and a messy beard. Well, I tried to start again, but I still just